And welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Patholkas, and tonight we're talking about Counterpart, Season 2, Episodes 1 through 3. Why am I doing 1 through 3 back to back to back? Because I missed them all. I didn't have this channel up until about a week ago. So I missed the premiere, of course, and of course I had to compact them all into one episode. So after this, I should be doing them episode by episode after that. So, those of you who don't know, Counterpart is on Starz. You can get a free subscription on Starz and take a look at it, see what you think. Season 1 is up in its entirety. It's actually really damn good. Season 2, we're going to go over, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to recap it a bit and review. It might be a little bit fast, but, there's a reason for that. The first 2 episodes were kind of so-so. The 3rd episode redeemed itself a little bit. So with that said, for those of you who haven't seen it, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the shit out of all 3 of these. Thank you again to Viking Bitch or Sculpted Leather Art by Viking Bitch for the paddle. I still need to do a little scraping and some more repainting on that. So it will be coming. It's just a matter of time. That's for sure. Yeah, and Starz does not know how to market any show they have. That's Lionsgate for you. Lionsgate really, really sucks on this. They did the same thing with Ash versus Evil Dead. They killed that show. Outlander was the only thing they were promoting. They brought that to Comic-Con. They brought Ash versus Evil Dead to the first 2 seasons of Comic-Con, and then killed it the 3rd season. That's when we knew it was dead for sure. They could have definitely brought this to Comic-Con last year and this year. I don't know if they're going to. They should really think about it, because bring in J.K. Simmons, shit, yeah, that would actually work very, very well, as well as the rest of the cast. Olivia Williams, just everybody who's involved in this. They've all worked in genre at some point in time or another, and this is considered sci-fi. So for those of you who don't know what Counterpart is, briefly in a nutshell, about 30 years ago, there was an experiment in Germany, in Berlin, that created 2 separate alternate realities. So we have an alpha universe, which is considered our world, if you will. Then there's a prime universe. So we all have doubles in those from 30 years back. And your double can diverge from how you are. They could have a different job, different life, all that kind of stuff. Just depends on what kind of choices they made. They're all different choices, and their world's a little bit different as well. And there's a Cold War espionage thing going on right now, where they're not trading information readily. They do have some kind of diplomacy. There is one entrance in and out of both realities. It's called the Crossing. It's underneath this building in Berlin, and they send diplomats back and forth. So you have an office, the Office of Interchange is what it's called, or OI, that regulates both sides. So there's one in the Prime universe and one in the Alpha universe. And you have different departments within that office. So you have management at the top, and then it goes down from there. So this, at the end of season 1, we had a massacre that happened in the Alpha universe. The Prime universe sent over a faction called Indigo and killed about 19 people, brutally murdered them, and that caused the crossing to be closed by both sides. So they've closed it down now at this point and are not letting anybody back and forth. So you have people trapped on both sides. You have Prime people trapped on the Alpha side and Alpha people trapped on the Prime side. And that's where we go from here. So episode 1 is called Inside Out. And we're introduced to Naya Temple as a former FBI agent, and she is recruited by management. And management we never see. We only hear them through machines. So there's a person that's usually got headphones on, and there's a weird camera sitting in front of them. And you talk to the camera, and then the person with the headphones will answer you back. They put up their finger when they hear something coming through, and they tell you what management is saying. It's very kind of creepy. And so she is told about the other world and whether or not she wants to join this as a Quayle's new partner to find the imposters in the Office of Interchange, or in OI at this point. So Howard Alpha, by the way, is now in the Prime universe. He has assumed Howard Prime's identity, and Emily Prime, his wife, has woken up out of her coma, and he is kind of helping her get acquainted. And it's kind of weird. We don't know exactly how much he knows about Emily Prime, or excuse me, Emily Alpha, and it's kind of a creepy situation. And right now, Howard Prime, or excuse me, Howard Alpha is in the Prime universe. I got that mixed up there. So Howard Prime is in the Alpha universe with Emily Alpha, and Howard Alpha is in the Prime universe, and he's being held now against his will in the Prime OI because they know who he is. One is a spy and one is not. It's fairly easy to figure out. So Emily Alpha is out of her coma and she's awake with no memory of what's happened. And she's also trying to regain her memories, but she's frustrated by both words and of the things that are around her that she's seen as being out of place or unfamiliar, especially in rooms and things like that. And yeah, it is hard to keep track of everybody. You're right, Viking Bitch. The two of everyone. And at some point when you're going through, especially this first episode, it was very disjointed. I'm going to say this. The first episode was kind of a reacquainting. They start off exactly where they left off. They didn't give any new viewers a heads up on anything at all, which was, I was kind of surprised by the balls on that one, that they just kind of went with it and they didn't give any primer on it whatsoever. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, how are you going to recap this? There's so much backstory that was done in the first episode or first season. There's no way you can do that. You're either on board or you're not at this point. It's the same thing like Game of Thrones. You're either on board or you're not. You're not going to just walk in and go, oh, look, a dragon. No, there's a lot of shit going on. So, and yeah, Slurmy, that's you are going to be confused by this fairly early on. So there's a lot of different people. So Lambert Alpha is on the run right now. And Claire Prime, who is posing as Claire Alpha, is still working for Indigo, we found out. Even though she's told Quail that, no, I have no idea what's going on. I have nothing to do with them anymore. And yeah, so even though the attack happened, now she is the prime person. She's become the main person for Indigo in the Alpha world at this point. So yeah, it's very confusing at this point. Quail also, since he has an arrangement with Claire, he knows that Claire is not his Claire, and he knows that he could die at any point in time. He knows that she's Shadow. He lives in fear of her. He sleeps in a locked room with multiple locked doors, and it's kind of frightening when you look at it. And at the very end, we see Quail end up making a tape confessing about Claire being Shadow and being Claire Prime and not Claire Alpha. And he locks this away in his safe at work. So, I mean, yeah, that's how that first episode ends. It's not really a lot of new exposition, but kind of a recap, or not a recap, but a status check of where we're going with this, of what happened after everything happened with the assassination, with the murders that happened. And thank you, Sculpted Leather Art by Viking Bitch. Yes, my Legion shirt, which, there you go. You got a little view of that. I just want to let you know I did find my entire panel for Legion of this last Comic-Con that just happened in 2017. And I'm going to probably upload, or excuse me, not 2017, 2018. That just happened this summer. And I'm going to try and piece that all together because it's in different pieces and post it up here. I also found an old video of Daft Punk playing in a nightclub in 2012 here in San Diego when they were doing they did the soundtrack for Tron 2. I can't remember what the name of that was. But they were here in 2012, and they were playing a birthday party for a DJ in a bar that I just happened to be in. And I've got pretty much their entire set just about in there. So I'm going to try and put that up as well, because it was some really cool shit. So I've got a few little tidbits for you guys here and there that I'm putting up. So episode 2 is called Outside In. And at this point, we're seeing that we see Mira, the teacher from Indigo, the Indigo Infiltration School. She comes back again, and it's just pretty much right after she has left the school when they've killed all those kids, and she's with her partner, the guy that was helping her out, and she seduces him and basically tells him that he's gonna, help her out and all this kind of stuff, and she'll help him out. And yeah, so she takes matters into hand. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah. Um, and at this point, we also see Howard Alpha. He's being interrogated over in the Prime universe, and he finds out that his wife was the one that held him back from being moved up into strategy. He'd been trying to get into strategy for a long, long time. He never could in 30 years, I believe, that he was there, and it was because his wife was holding him back. And he actually hears some audio tape, and he doesn't believe them, of course, that she did it, but he knows that that was the reason why, because Howard Prime had already told him about all of this as well. So he knows about it. He's disappointed, but he's still loyal to her. And they want him to spy on his wife, and he's like, no, I'm not going to spy on her. And also to spy either that or spy on Emily Prime. And he's like, no, not going to do that either. So Emily Prime ends up, in the meantime, she keeps trying to see Howard. She knows that Howard Prime is being held, and she goes down every single day and tries to get in to see him, waits for him, and of course she never gets the clearance to go in. And so that's how it basically happens, where he just gets she gets brushed off until she gets a promotion. Management decides to move her up to the head of housekeeping because they need to find out who all the doubles are from Indigo, and also hunt down Mira from Indigo, because Mira is pretty much running wild at this point. And how management knows about Indigo, they don't know. At this point, no one knows how they know about her. In the meantime, Mira goes out and meets this old guy who's out in this little cottage out in the middle of nowhere in Germany. And we find out that he's actually management. She somehow sussed him out, and he knows who she is. And she says, you're going to give me your case. We find out that management uses cases, like a suitcase, to communicate. And that's how they check in and how they do their work. And he's got it hidden someplace in his house. And she says, this doesn't have to hurt. And he looks at her and goes, you were the one that we thought was the good one at this point. And he knows he's going to die at that point. And yeah, it's going to get ugly at this point in time. So we see that Howard Alpha's interrogator ends up recommending to management. He meets him again and basically tells Howard that he's going to be sent to Echo. And Echo is like, crap, man. It's a really scary place is what it's going to be. It's going to be a very scary place. I didn't know I had a lurker there, Slurmy. That's kind of interesting. I guess it might have been someone else. Who knows? But so this interrogator basically recommends to management that Howard be sent to Echo. And we don't know what Echo is. We just know it's a bad place. And it turns out, and we'll find out who this interrogator is in a little bit. In the meantime, Emily, now that she's promoted to head of housekeeping, and she goes and starts hunting down as many people as she can, and she finds out, she gets a lead on one of the Indigo kids, Schmidt, who is now older, and she goes to visit his parents and says, hey, your kid never died. He was taken into this program called Indigo, and I need to find him. And the father ends up being the one that breaks and goes and meets Emily and tells him where she can find him. And he ends up, going up to the roof. They get there a little too late. And he sees Emily and he goes, and he tells her that he knows her. And then he jumps from the building to his death. They go back in because at this point also, Emily has recruited Ian again. She wants to recruit Howard as well, but right now she has to settle for Ian. And They go in and they see that the computers are being erased already at this point, and they have paper files, and they're going through the paper files, and she sees her file of her double, of Emily Alpha. And Emily Alpha has been here roughly about 8 years ago. And really, it's kind of shocking for her because she doesn't realize that, she knew she was in the hospital at the time doing a procedure, and that's why she knows it wasn't her that they were spying on, and that she was over here. So now the stakes have raised a little bit. Now we're trying to figure out what the hell Emily Alpha was doing over, in the Prime universe. With me still on this? At this point, she ends up going back and finally getting in to see Howard. And she talks to Howard, and Howard's pissed at this point too, and Emily tells him the truth. She goes, yeah. She goes, I tried to keep my Howard from entering strategy as well. She goes, I did it to protect him. That's what your Emily was doing as well, was trying to protect you. It was out of love. And Howard at this point is like, you know what, fuck all this. Fuck this shit. And she, again, tries to get him to help her to find the Indigo spies. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going, I'm staying right here. And at that point, she leaves, and Howard ends up getting sent off to Indigo. And we find out that the interrogator that actually recommended him being sent out to Indigo works for Mira. And that was Mira's orders to send him out to Indigo. In the meantime, Mira has gone back and killed Schmidt's parents, because Schmidt is now dead, and she knows that the father was the leak, and the mother might as well have been as well. And so she kills them to tie up any loose ends. And that's pretty much where we left off, that episode where, Howard's on his way to Echo. So let me get to the chat a little bit here before I get into episode 3. Movie Finobi says she held him back in both universes versus bitches holding their men's down in the guise of protection. You know what? I don't know. I mean, she did love him. She didn't want him to get involved in all the shit that was going on. She probably saw a lot more. And Emily Alpha, I think there's a lot more to it that we don't know. And her not having her memory is, a big, touchstone on that one. Yeah, and if you're in the chat, if you're just kind of lurking around and stuff like that, join us. We're all very friendly. Nobody gets any kind of weird or anything like that. I'm probably the only one that gets a little bit weird as I'm talking here. So, Mufino says, yeah, I wonder when that payoff will happen with the roof jumper with Schmidt. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but Emily Alpha's involved in some really serious shit. I wouldn't be surprised if she's involved with Indigo as well. But I've said that before from the first season, that I thought Emily Alpha was involved with Indigo as well, and that because both sides are working together. Some factions of both sides are working together. So that's where we're at. So episode 3 is called Something Borrowed. So I get my notes off to the side here. And yes, we do get to meet James Cromwell's character in this episode. So Baldwin comes back, and she never left Berlin. She's still pining over her girlfriend, the barista. And she goes and sees her outside of a club and sees that she's with another woman, and she ends up getting drugged and captured. Yeah. Thanks, Baldwin. But we see that Claire, she's out for a run, and she meets Lambert. And Lambert, now being out on the lam, as he says, can't quite activate new cells or get the counterfeit money flowing to the cells as well. And that she needs to take on all these duties now. She's kind of pissed about it and says, okay, I'll see what I can do, and takes off. And we find out that Lambert is hiding out with his double, Lambert Prime, who is stuck in the Alpha universe in the Prime embassy, if you will. And he is it's a very weird American Psycho scene where he's having sex. His prime self is having sex with a prostitute and asks him to join in. He's like, no, that's all right. You go ahead. He goes, I'm tired. And he's sitting here watching. They're making eye contact, like severe eye contact, while he's having sex with this prostitute. And yeah, it was very, very weird. That whole scene, yeah, exactly, Viking bitch. That scene with Lambert cuddling with himself was very creepy. I thought. I didn't think it was sweet at all. I found it very creepy. But he's such a narcissist that you can see how he would love himself in that kind of way. Yeah. Bus wankers. The bus wankers we'll get to in just a minute. They're actually in this episode as well. So Quayle, we find out, has planted a bug in Claire's shoe, and he hears the entire conversation between her and Lambert, and he's pissed off that she's not giving him higher quality targets in order to keep up the cover that he can bring into the office and basically say, hey, look who I've caught. And so he decides that he's going to take down the counterfeit ring. And he's setting this up. He's been sitting there thinking about, mulling it over, and he's been basically just fueling the fire of getting pissed at her enough to the point where he's like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to take over. He doesn't talk to her about it. He just says, I'm going to go and do it. And he sets up this whole thing. Howard Alpha, by the way, ends up meeting Yannick, who is our James Cromwell's character who comes in, and he's over at Echo. And we find out that Echo prison is where a lot of the prime doubles have been taken, and they're mined for their information. Basically, they're in a prison to be mined of everything they know about their lives, so they can use them against the doubles in the Alpha universe. Very, very insidious, very wrong. We also find out that Howard Prime was the one that captured a lot of these people and put them in prison. So it's kind of like taking Batman and throwing him in Arkham Asylum with all your different villains that he's captured, only it's not Batman, it's Earth 42 Batman or something like that, who doesn't have any of these powers or any abilities, just that he looks like him. That's all. Kind of a shitty thing to do. And he also meets Quayle in there, another version of Quayle. He meets Quayle Prime and realizes that's what this whole thing is all about. Just really, really bad. So at one point, Yannick actually tells Howard Prime, gives him the offer. He says, you know what, I can make you every bit the spy that he is if you'll just, work with us. And Howard Prime's like, no, I have no desire to do so. And Yannick's like, okay, well, you will at some point in time. You definitely will. So Quayle ends up, Claire in the meantime is activating her cell. She jumps on the bus, and she's got her little bag with the money in there, and she's activating her cell, and she meets this guy, and the guy is kind of being a dick. He's turning around. Yeah, I'll get to the theories in a minute there, maybe Finobi. And we'll get to that in just a sec. But the guy's kind of being a dick. He's turning around. He's not being very covert about things. And we find out that it's actually Spencer, her boyhood schoolmate who was in Indigo class with her, who she had a crush on. So much so that she even named her kid Spencer. Yeah. So he's there, and he's in the cell, and he's the one that's been activated at this point. So Quayle decides to go ahead with his raid, and just before he's leaving on the raid, Naya shows up and says, hey, can I come along with you? And he's like, sure, why not? And so they're going to this office building, and the office building's completely deserted. And the phone's just ringing. The phone starts ringing. He walks over there and picks it up and says, hello. Or he doesn't say anything. He just picks it up and listens, and it hangs up. And then you see a laser light on the back of his head, and Naya pushes him down at the last second, tells everyone to get down. And of course, there's a guy across the way who starts shooting into the windows and kills one of Quayle's men. So it's all been a setup all at this point in time. And if Naya hadn't been there, Quayle would have been dead, because he has no field experience whatsoever. Exactly. Fucking Quayle. Quayle is such an asshole sometimes, I swear to God. This guy fails upward constantly. And every time you think he's got, one step up above somebody, he doesn't. He really doesn't. They're already like 3 steps ahead of him. Obviously, even with the shoes. So Howard Prime, in the meantime, bumps into some old members of his old team, his old Prime team that are stuck in the Alpha universe, and they're the ones that have captured Baldwin. And they say she's the one that has pointed us towards you. She told us that you're here, and she wants to talk to you. And the reason why she wants to talk to him, because, she figures that he's the only one that can get her out. Yeah, at that. So he's like, you know what? He goes, I'm working on some shit. I'll try and get you out in a little bit. And he tells the guys, I've got some other people I got to talk to. I'll be back in about 24 hours. And he leaves. And you can tell he's pissed at this point, too. In the meantime, Emily Alpha, who's still trying to recover her memory, and she's trying to write and everything. She can't even write at this point. She gets a visit from Naya, who tells her everything about her old job. Basically comes by with a file on her and says, hey, here's what you did. Here's what you used to do. Do you have any memories of any of this? Here's pictures of your office and things like that. You used to be a spy. Here's what you did as a spy. And I'm like, really? So you're going to take a woman who's had a brain injury, who doesn't remember anything. You're going to bring her some classified materials and just spill the entire beans to her. What the hell? So already this is raising a red flag with me with Naya. I don't know what Naya's into, what her angle is that she's working on, or why management brought her in, but there's something fishy about her at this point. And just as Naya's getting ready to leave, basically Emily wants her to leave at this point because her head is hurting her, and she's sending her out. And Naya tells her about the attack that had happened, and the people that died. And she goes, well, I'm sure Aldrich is on the case and he'll handle it, is what Emily says. And she goes, no. Aldrich is dead. He was Shadow. And Emily's like, well, what do you mean? Aldrich was the one that we could trust. And she goes, and Shadow is a woman. And at that point, Naya's like, oh, shit, we've got the wrong person. So, yeah, it's some pretty fucked up stuff at that point. At the meantime, Quayle walks in and confronts Claire and says, hey, are you surprised to see me alive? I'm back. And he starts eating her dinner that she has in front of her, which she's only made enough for one, which looks suspicious to begin with. And then he tells her about going in to raid the counterfeit place, the counterfeit money place that he heard her talk with Lambert about. And that's when Claire realizes, oh shit, Lambert set me up. This was a test. You've blown both of our covers, and we're now both dead at this point. Yeah. And everybody's fucked everything up by killing Aldrich. But Aldrich Prime, I think, is still alive. So Aldrich Alpha is dead, but I think Aldrich Prime is still alive. And their fight, Quayle and Claire's fight, gets interrupted by a knock at the door, and it's Howard Prime, who just barges in, and he goes, sit down. He tells Quayle and Claire, it's time we had an adult conversation. And that's where episode 3 ends. Holy shitballs. I mean, if it wasn't for this third episode, this season would be really, really dragging at this point. In Movie Finobi, I don't think Aldrich is an Echo. I believe he is the guy that we saw with the mask. And like I said, I think Aldrich Prime and Aldrich Alpha were working together. They were working together to root out Indigo. They knew about Indigo, and they were both working to root it out. And I think Aldrich Prime might actually be part of Indigo as undercover work. So do I think there's more universes than just the 2 universes? Yes. There's no way they didn't just stop at this experiment. It could still be ongoing. You could still have more happening. And, it's going to be interesting to see where they go with this. Right now, they're just kind of focused on the 2 universes at this point in time. So I don't know where they're going to go with her. And yes, I like Baldwin too, but they kind of neutered her in this season. I don't know what happened to her. And kind of like what Howard Prime was saying. He goes, why don't you take the money and run and go make a new life for yourself? You had all that money. He goes, why'd you stay here in Berlin? Everyone's looking for you. Everyone's looking to kill you. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Mufinobi. Emily Alpha did give a few huge big nugget of truth. And now that Naya's on the case, who's reading this stuff out, and I still don't trust Naya 100% completely. So it's going to remain to be seen what's going to happen. But I think that what's going to end up happening here is Claire is dead at some point in time here. Quayle is going to fail upward in management, definitely at this point. And yeah, it's going to be some ugly stuff by the end of this season. Slurmy Scott says, now I know how Bill feels when I try to explain Poldark. He gets so confused these days. Yeah, if you're not following this show, if you're not watching this show, it can be very, very confusing. I don't think Baldwin's ex new girl is a slut. She just, had moved on. It had been a couple of weeks at that point. So she moved on and found somebody else. That's all it is. But yeah, Claire is definitely dead. I mean, there's no way that Quayle can keep living in a locked room by himself with a kid, and it just doesn't work out that way. And the whole thing with him coming in and confronting Claire, and how's it gonna be? Polonium in the potatoes? Strychnine in the carrots? Is it gonna be a slow death or is it gonna be fast? And he's just basically grilling her on how she's gonna end up killing him, not realizing that they were both played at this point. And he's such a dumb shit. I really, he really is. And you don't really realize it until you see his double in the Echo, that his double is just as equally stupid. So yeah. So what did you guys think about this episode? Good, bad? I know early on here we were talking about where were we here? Mufinobi says, if you can't love the one you want, love the one you're with. Yeah. And yeah, man, Spencer was totally a bus wanker. He is. Mufinobi says, James Cromwell's accent didn't bother me as much as I expected. He didn't talk all that much, so he didn't have to do the accent. I mean, sure, it was a really bad German accent. I mean, a really bad German accent, like stereotypically bad German accent. I mean, it was like something that I would do. And you would think they would have worked with him a little bit more on that, or just gone with it, a regular accent, like just let him do his own voice. But yeah, I love James Cromwell too, but there's sometimes you're just like, dude, really? Come on. Mufinobi says, never seen Dennis in glasses so much. Laugh out loud, your powers are weak, old man. Yeah, that's what happens when you get older, and you need to actually have glasses on to see shit now. So it does happen. It'll happen to you too. That's what happens when you get older. There were 6 watching at one point. Holy crap, now there's only 3. Oh well. Maybe I scared them off when I said that we're going to talk about Doctor Who and then switch it over to Star Trek Discovery. Slurmy Scott says Dennis is a D-Naya. Yeah, D-Naya. Very funny. Says the man who hasn't watched the show. Movie Finobi says, what do you think will happen? Oh, that's right, I forgot to mention that. So that was the other thing. Ian came back and to the old man's place. He actually was tracking down an address and went back to the old man's place because he's looking for Mira. And he says, he meets the neighbor, and the neighbor's kind of pissed off that his dog went and got into her composting and was digging up eggshells and all this stuff. And she says about his friends had left him out when they came over. And the last time she had seen him was on Sunday. And she says, crazy old man, he was doing gardening out in the backyard in the middle of winter. And Ian goes out into the backyard and finds the management case buried out in the backyard. So, and he's like, oh shit. Cause then he realizes that he just found somebody from management dead, from somebody from Indigo. And he knows that Indigo now is hunting for management, and they know who management who the people in management are. So what does management do at this point? Do they divulge who they are so they can be brought into this investigation? Is Ian going to tell anybody? Is Ian going to let Emily tell, or is Emily going to tell management that they're being hunted now at this point? Do they already know this? Yeah, there's a lot of shit to be had on this one. Yeah, I do need a bigger set of monitors, maybe Finobi. Right now, I'm working off my laptop, so it just doesn't work all that well. So, and yeah, they should just let Cromwell be an American. That's all they need to do, really. So, I'm pretty much at the end here of what I've got. And we've got 4 viewers in here. All right. Welcome to our 4th viewer. We're at the very end here, but I'm already done, but you can go back and take a look at it later on. So I'm going to be doing episode 5 of season 1 of Future Man tomorrow at 11 a.m. Come on by, join me. And this is all in preparation for season 2, which happens January 11th. We're going to be covering that as well, or I'm going to be covering that as well. There's no we other than the royal we. So please like and subscribe. There's a little subscribe button down there, and hit the bell as well. And you can find me on Facebook. That's where I'll be putting up some scheduling up there. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on my website, suspendedfanimation.com. And you can also find me here on YouTube. So, other than that, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. And I will see you all tomorrow morning. Thanks for stopping by. Good night, everybody.